It's the amazing Rico Brogna podcast with your host, Evan Roberts.
Well, it had been a long time. It had been a while since we experienced what it feels like to watch the New York Mets lose a baseball game. Excuse me. It took over a week, and here we are. 8 days later, the New York Mets winning streak ends. They lose a game to the Texas Rangers by a final score of 5-3. We will go through this game, but let me just tell you this. And I've said this before. Sometimes your expectations begin to change. You go into a stretch of games and say, get me 8-4. And then when you start off 7-1, you say 8-4 is not good enough. Things like that. So watching this baseball game tonight, when Pete Alonso hits the 2-run home run that he hits in the 6th inning, and the Mets have a 3-1 lead, and Sean Manaea is starting the 6th inning, and he still has not allowed a base hit, and you can see the finish line. Now, granted, you need 12 more outs, 11 more outs after he struck out the leadoff hitter, but you've got a 3-1 lead in the 6th inning, and you can taste it. You can really taste a sweep of the Texas Rangers, an 8-game winning streak, a little bit of a break because the Mets have an off day on Thursday, to then watch them flush the game away the way they did. Sean Manaea hitting a brick wall in the 6th inning, Sean Reed-Foley really struggling, Drew Smith being so typical of Drew Smith, the Met offense just going to sleep, and the Mets losing this game 5-3. It sucks. It sucks because after Pete hit that bomb of a home run, I'm pumped up. You're pumped up. We're thinking, here we go. We're going to win again. It's going to be a week and a half between losses potentially. And so I'm going to try to be fair about this. I'm going to try to be rational about it because we should be rational. I try to be rational and say, hey, you can't win them all. I give you that cliche. Can't win them all. It's baseball, Susan. You're not going to win every single game. You knew eventually this winning streak would end. You knew that our new mascot, Elmo, or Grimace, I've already forgotten his name. All we did was lose a game, and I'm thinking it's Elmo. But you knew they would lose a game eventually, and that's fine. And that's the rational side of me. The irrational side of me, especially when we do these Ricos minutes after a game ends, is to be pissed off, is to be annoyed that they lost the game they shouldn't have lost. And it leaves me with questions. One question being, what the hell's wrong with Dednil Nunez? And we'll keep an eye on what Carlos Mendoza says in the postgame, because him not coming into this game as early as the 6th inning was a very big warning sign to me. Because Nunez has been so good. He had not pitched in many days now. I think you got to go back to the weekend. And so to go to Sean Reed-Foley, who's pitched well and has certainly entered the circle of trust, not that I'm anti going to Sean Reed-Foley. I just thought in that moment in the 6th inning, Dednil Nunez would be my guy. So Hoff, keep an eye on that if Mendy says anything about Nunez, because I'm going to assume he's hurt, because it doesn't make sense that he never got into this game, nor did he warm up in this game. But a couple of things about this loss to Texas. First of all, I give some kudos to Sean Manaea, because after getting the first 2 outs in the bottom of the 1st inning, he proceeded to completely lose the strike zone. Now, in fairness, the home plate umpire, Jimenez, was an abomination. I mean, pound for pound, I'm not scoring how an umpire does. I know there's that Twitter account that gives you the umpire scorecard. I can promise you this. If you look at Jimenez's scorecard from this game, that's an F performance. And it was all over the place. It was not against the Mets. I'm not necessarily saying this to bitch about, oh, we got screwed. I'm certainly not saying that. I'm just saying he was bad. Like, he was very bad at his job. Is really what I'm saying. It's not good. It was all over the place. Very inconsistent. I know he started calling the high strike a little bit, but he missed so many calls in this game. But it wasn't Jimenez. It was Sean Manaea, who just couldn't find the strike zone. He walks the 3 straight hitters. He gets a hit of Wyatt Langford and hits him. Oh, my God. Basically handing the Texas Rangers a run. Now, to Manaea's credit, things could have gotten worse. Nathaniel Lowe could have ripped up a bases-clearing double, and this could have been a 4-0 game. But to Manaea's credit, he got a big ground out at third base. And then he settled in. And I thought we saw what was very typical of Sean Manaea. He settled in. He was efficient, which was really important because I think when you throw 36 pitches in the first inning, one of your fears is, even though he only gave up one run, how deep in this game is he actually going to go? Now, granted, the Mets were in a pretty good spot because you have an off day. They haven't really overworked their bullpen. I mean, think about it. David Peterson went 6 innings in the game on Monday. Luis Severino went 6 1/3 innings with the game yesterday. So they had gone out and gotten pretty good starting pitching over the last couple of days, or at least long starting pitching going into the last couple of days. But when you throw 36 pitches in the first inning, there's a worry. How long is this guy actually going to be able to go? And not only did he settle in and retire like 13 guys in a row, he did it very efficiently. And so Manaea ended up giving them a quality performance. The Mets finally get a run across with Starling Marte getting a big RBI double. But even when he got the RBI double, that inning felt like it was a missed opportunity. You get a leadoff man on with a Brandon Nimmo check swing double. JD draws a walk. You got 2-1 and nobody out. Both those guys got to score. And instead, Pete struck out. Marte came through with the big RBI double. But then you have second and third one out. And Vientos and Alvarez failed. They back-to-back strikeouts. Really, Vientos failed. And Mark Vientos had a very quiet game after a big game the night before. It took an over, but more than that, he struck out with second and third one out. Good contact. At least you get a second run across. But at least the Mets are able to tie the game. And like I said, they took the lead when Pete hit the 2-run bomb. Fantastic. Now, as far as how you got to manage this if you're Carlos Mendoza, I know it's frustrating when guys are taken out early. But Sean Manaea, and Mendy's done this all year, I can't even complain about it, has pulled Sean Manaea, it feels, maybe one batter too early, which is better than pulling a guy one batter too late. And he deviated from that today. Because when Manaea starts the 6th inning and he strikes out Corey Seager, okay, fine. Go batter to batter. Once he gives up the base hit to Robbie Grossman, I got to tell you, I was stunned he stayed in the game because you have a pitch count in the mid-90s and you have a player who, third time around the order, is just not very effective. The numbers tell us a story about Sean Manaea. Same thing with Andrew Heaney on the other side, but that's not my worry. That's Bruce Bochy's worry. So I was surprised. I'm not mad at it. I'm not killing him for it. I think there's a difference between the two. I'm just telling you I was surprised. I thought that the way Mendoza has handled Manaea this season, when you get to that third time around the batting order, you're going to be very, very careful. And when he gave up the hit to Corey Seager, I was surprised he stayed in the game. Adolis Garcia hit one deep to left field. Okay, he still stays in the game. And then one of the bigger plays, Josh Smith rips that RBI double. And at that point is when Manaea pulled him. I'm not against going to Sean Reed Foley because I kind of like the idea of challenging Sean Reed Foley. He's had a good year. He's been one of their better relievers. So here's a spot with a 1-run lead in the 6th inning in which you say, okay, let's see what you got. Let's see you get a big out. And unfortunately for Sean Reed Foley, he was bad. And I thought he was very, very lucky he even got through that inning. Gives up the base hit to Langford to tie the game, walks Nathaniel Lau, and then gets lucky when he struck out Jonah Heim. So it was a very shaky performance by Sean Reed Foley as he thrown right into the fire. And then in the 7th inning, the Mets get the leadoff man on and they do nothing. And this is when Carlos Mendoza got uber aggressive again with his bench. And I don't love it. I didn't love this. Jeff McNeil has done very, very little. Jose Iglesias has barely played. And in the limited time that he is played, he's been effective. Why do we feel the need to rush to go to Jeff McNeil for Jose Iglesias? Why? The guy's hitting 220. You know, I've said this before. You have to treat Jeff McNeil like a new baseball player, not the guy who won a batting title a year and a half ago. So you sit him today against the lefty, Andrew Heaney. Great. That's fine. We all saw it coming. Thank you. Iglesias goes 0 for 2, not the end of the world. And now in the 7th inning, you're facing Jose Urena, and you feel like you got to go to Jeff McNeil. Why? He's not hitting. He's not performing. I didn't understand it. I didn't love it. You got a runner on first, nobody out. I was even thinking, I'll get crazy with you. And I know that most people wouldn't agree with this, but that's fine. I'm going to give you my opinion. I actually thought about bunting. I was thinking to myself, all right, I got a runner on first, nobody out. Alvarez runs pretty well for a catcher. Let me see if I can lay down a bunt with Iglesias and give Bader, who's been one of my more clutch hitters, Lindor, opportunity to drive him in.
Can I be honest with you? When McNeil comes up, the first thing that Cohen said was it either Cohen or Hernandez was like, well, the one thing you can't do is have him bunt. And I thought the exact opposite. I was with you. I'm like, this is a perfect spot. He can't hit. If anything, he maybe can drag bunt to first base.
Well, what's funny is I wasn't even thinking of McNeil. I was thinking of keeping Iglesias up there and laying down a bunt. But sure, I mean, we've seen Jeff McNeil lay down bunts. He's actually done it effectively as a weapon. There was a game, I'm trying to remember which game it was, where he laid down a bunt, got a base hit, and actually started a late rally. And he made that comment after the game, yeah, I got it in my arsenal. I got it as a weapon. I just think nowadays bunting that early in the game, you just don't see it. And by that early in the game, yes, I mean the seventh inning. I'm just telling you, with the options I had at the plate, which is Jose Iglesias or Jeff McNeil, I felt better about getting that runner to scoring position and giving Bader, who's been one of my better clutch hitters, a chance, and then the top of the order a chance. They don't bunt. McNeil on the first pitch. Oh, my God. The first freaking pitch, he hits a weak fly ball to right field. Like, just right on cue. And then he pinch hits for Bader. Like, I don't fully understand the fascination with DJ Stewart. Like, I know what he's good at. He has a really good eye. He doesn't swing for the most part at balls out of the strike zone. He's got a little bit of pop. He's hit 5 home runs this season. Bader's hit 4, but obviously DJ's done it in a more limited time. I get the qualities that he has. The guy is still hitting like 100 over the last month. And Harrison Bader, who, yeah, I gave him crap during the offseason for really being a fourth outfielder, but I got to call like I see it. He's been one of their more clutch hitters. Why are you in a rush to take out one of your more clutch hitters and also hurt your defense, which you do by taking Bader out for DJ Stewart? So I didn't love Mendy emptying the cupboard, if you will, in the top of the 7th inning of this game. But obviously, here's where things went to the complete shitter. You go to Drew Smith, who I know Pete doesn't trust. I don't trust. None of us trust him. I get it. He's at home in Dallas, Texas. Good for him. Drew Smith did something which has really been like the cardinal sin of the Met pitching this season. He gets the first 2 outs against 9-1 in the batting order. And he walks Corey Seager. Now, granted, you got Leotis Tavares on the bench or on deck because Bruce Bochy did something a little odd by taking Robbie Grossman out of the game. And so he goes to Tavares, who's been in this massive batting slump, sticks him in there, not as a pinch hitter, but he moves in for defense in the top of the inning. So you know he's on deck. And while I get that, and certainly Tavares scares you far less than Corey Seager, doesn't it always seem to be the walk, especially with 2 outs and nobody on, that comes back to kill you? And that's exactly what happened. He walked Corey Seager. Tavares had a pretty good at-bat, and I had a bad feeling in that at-bat. That had a very that's baseball Susan feel to it. Here's a guy who's in a massive batting slump, who just got dumped into the 3rd hole in the batting order because you took Robbie Grossman out. I just had a bad feeling he was going to do something. And remember, a few pitches earlier, he just missed a double, which would have scored a run. And instead, he crushes that 3-2 pitch out for his 5th home run of the season. And my stomach sunk. I think all of our stomachs sunk because you kind of knew, all right, the magic ain't happening tonight. I mean, it's been a great run, but they are not rallying in the 9th inning against Kirby Yates, especially after they touched them a little bit the day before. And we all saw it happen. A 1-2-3 9th inning, and the Mets lose a baseball game. What is always so important when you have a long winning streak, and I've probably said this like 150 times on WFAN over the years I've been there, it's always how you respond. Every team's going to have a winning streak, even the bad ones. That's why there are Met fans out there who are still skeptical on what this team is. And I understand that. You saw a lot of bad baseball in the month of May. A hot streak, which they are on, is not always enough to make you say, hey, they're legitimately good. I fully believe. But what is so important and where the Mets are about to be tested is how they respond. They won this series against Texas. That is great. They are on an awesome run right now of just going out and winning series. They have not lost a series since the rock bottom moment of being swept by the LA Dodgers. They split with Arizona. They swept Washington. They split with Philly. They won 2 out of 3 against Miami. They swept San Diego. And now 2 out of 3 against Texas. So this is a nice run going all the way back to right after Memorial Day where they have not lost a series. The key now, and I can't stress this enough, and I don't want to overhype something, but I'm just going to be honest. They're about to embark on a very important series. And I don't mean the games against the Yankees. That's important in terms of, fighting with your brothers and sisters. You know what I mean? That's important in terms of this weird thing known as bragging rights. At the end of the day, that 2-game series against the Yankees, and look, I know I'm a hypocrite. We'll do Ricos after each game. I think we'll do drive-home Ricos after each game. So I get it's a big deal. We're going to do shows live from the Cataclack Club. I know it's a big deal. But in the whole grand scheme of things, it's not a big deal, if that makes any sense. What is a big deal is this weekend in Chicago. Because what the Mets need to do now, it's twofold. They need to respond to the winning streak ending. They need to respond by keeping things cool. Not necessarily that they got to go out and win 7 more in a row. I'm not saying that. But they got to keep the winning going. This has been a nice 3.5-week run of playing good baseball. You can't throw it all back. So number one, the importance is showing that what we've witnessed over 3 weeks is not a fluke. Win a series against the Chicago Cubs. But number two, and I've touched on this, and this is important. If you are a believer that this is a wild card race, that this is real, that the Mets are alive, and you're also a believer that this is going to be kind of a mess, it's going to be bunched up, which I happen to think it will, then when you play a team in the bunch, I think the phrase that Tiki used during the football season was peer tier for teams that the Giants are kind of like peers with, right? A peer tier team. It made sense. Later, we found out the Giants just stunk and there were a lot of teams above them. But in the moment, it was, hey, that's a peer tier team. The Chicago Cubs are a peer tier team. They are not going to play another peer tier team until Washington. They got a stretch of games against Washington, Pittsburgh, and Washington again. Those are 2 peer tier teams. Pirates and Nationals, you may not believe in them, but as of right now, when you look at the standings, they're in that peer. And what you need to do is you need to win those games because A, it's important, but also these tiebreakers. And I'll lay it out again as we head into the Chicago series. The Mets and the Cubs split a 4-game series at Citi Field not too long ago. This series at Wrigley Field over the weekend is for the tiebreaker. If the Cubs win the series, they own the tiebreaker. If the Mets win the series, they own the tiebreaker. Now, I understand the Chicago Cubs may not be there. The Mets may not be there in late September. But we don't know that right now. Honestly, I try to assess the National League after you have Philadelphia. I think Atlanta is going to be fine. The 10 games above 500. They will, without a doubt, be a wild card team. So they, to me, are not a peer tier team, even if we're going to sit there and root for them to lose. Milwaukee, you figure, takes the Central, even though they could certainly come back. LA takes the West. And you look at all the other teams in the mix. San Diego, San Francisco, Arizona, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Chicago, St. Louis, Washington. I may have missed somebody. I apologize. And I'm trying to project, all right, how does this picture eventually look? And I got to be honest, I have no idea. I don't know. I think a lot of it's going to depend on how these teams act going into the trade deadline. But the point is, instead of worrying about that, this series against Chicago is very important. Now, they have an off day on Thursday, and then this series begins, and the Mets are going to do something really interesting. They're going to begin the series against the guy who's arguably been the best pitcher in the National League right now, and that is Shota Imanaga. But what's really interesting about this matchup is that Shota will be doing something for the first time in his major league career when he faces the Mets on Friday afternoon. And you know what that is? I'll tell you what that is. He has faced everybody once. And the old cliche about a guy who really rookies, but certainly it fits him coming from Japan as a rookie, is that's first time around the league. What's going to happen when the league knows him, right? What's going to happen then? First time around the league, Shota Imanaga is 7-1 with a 1.89 ERA. He's been great. I'm not going to rip him. Nobody can rip him. Guy's been great. He has not faced any team in Major League Baseball a second time. Not one. Until Friday. The Mets, of course, faced him a month and a half ago or a month ago, whenever that was. And he was brilliant. Remember, he threw 7 awesome innings at Citi Field. But this is the very first time that he is facing anybody a second time. So we're going to be the guinea pig. We're going to find out, hey, as great as this guy has been, how does he look second time around the league? And that happens to start this series on Friday afternoon with Jose Quintana on the mound. Tyler McGill is going to start the Saturday afternoon game against Jamison Tyone. And then David Peterson is going to start the Sunday night game against Javier Assad. That's right. We're on Sunday Night Baseball. So we get to do what Yankee fans have been able to do the last couple of weeks, and that's complain about the broadcast and how awful that is. We get to do that Sunday night. But I do think the Imanaga thing is interesting because he's been great, and I'm not shortchanging him at all. I mean, maybe he's going to turn out to be better than Yamamoto. I know he's healthier than Yamamoto. But we always hear, how will you do the second time around? And this is the first time he's going to go second time around as he faces the Mets on Friday afternoon. That weird Friday afternoon. I guess it's not weird because that's Wrigley Field, right? That's a tradition, Friday afternoon in Chicago. The other thing to keep an eye on going into this series is the Tomas Nido factor. Pete was devastated because I know he loves Yan Gomes. Yan Gomes is his guy. He got DFA'd by the Chicago Cubs, and they replaced him with Tomas Nido. So Tomas Nido cleared waivers, refused an assignment to AAA, rightfully so, became a free agent, and then got a major league deal. So good for Tomas Nido. But we all have to admit, we're scared. We're scared of Tomas Nido this weekend in Chicago. I'm not necessarily scared for what they talked about on the broadcast, which is that he knows the tendencies of everybody. I'm sure he can share some information that's helpful. But what scares me is how many times have we seen a former Met just stick it up our derriere? We've seen it a lot. So hopefully that doesn't, hopefully that doesn't happen. Hopefully Tomas Nido is not haunting our dreams, but he is now on the Chicago Cubs. Keep that in mind. The other thing I want to address, and then we'll get to some of your emails, and we'll get to a couple of your voicemails in this interesting series recap, because we did do Rico's after game 1 and game 2. So you can certainly go back into the archives and hear our reactions to both games. So I'm not going to spend too much time on those games because we already did it. If you want to hear it, go listen to it wherever you download your podcast. But the other thing that is important is this Justin Verlander injury. It's important not only because the Mets may not face him in a week and a half when the Mets take on the Houston Astros at Citi Field, but we all know about the inning situation. That there is a benchmark that Justin Verlander needs to hit, and if he hits that innings number, the Mets will kick in $17.5 million next year as part of the trade that was made in dumping Justin Verlander to the Houston Astros. He got scratched in his last start with this neck issue. It sounded as if it wasn't going to be a major deal, but then it turned out to be a major deal because all of a sudden he was placed on the IL. So it's $17.5 million that the Mets would owe him, or owe the Astros, in 2025. He needs to get to 140 innings. And as we stand right now, and obviously there's uncertainty about how much time he's going to miss, but you know he's missing 2 weeks because he's on the 15-day IL. Right now, he stands at 57 innings. So what I would tell you, and I don't want to count my chickens before they hatch, but what I would tell you is he's not getting there. I mean, right now, if he needs to get to, did I say 140? Because that's the number. Whipping out my calculator. 140 minus 57 means he needs to throw 83 more innings. That's not going to be easy. I mean, you basically need, if you're Justin Verlander, a half a season to get to that number, because I don't think he's going to throw at more of a pace than that. And he's not going to have a half a season because in about another week, the Astros will be past their halfway point. So I happen to think the Mets are going to get lucky on this one. I wasn't sure about it. They needed him to have another injured list stint. I'm certainly not rooting for it, but it does benefit the Mets. But I thought he was going to need another injured list stint for him to avoid getting to that innings threshold. And as we sit here right now, I think he's not going to get there, which is going to save the Mets $17.5 million, which only means something if you use it, just for the record.
And we thought that we lost today. We thought that the Grimace streak was over. No, we got another win with the Verlander news. Also, I do have an update on Dednell Nunez. So he has a sinus infection and was not available today. He got to the stadium. His face was all puffy. He didn't look good. I'm sure that they're going to have to put him on some crazy congestion medication or whatnot to try to get rid of that. They're a pain in the ass. They do feel awful. I have sinus issues all the time, so I know how they feel. I can't imagine pitching in those conditions. So I'm sure he'll be back, though, within a day or two.
Yeah, that's good news. I mean, not that I wish a sinus infection on anybody because it is a pain in the ass, but I think you're always worried about elbow soreness or his arm hurts or something of that nature. So the fact it's not an injury is a good thing because he's a weapon. And I do think that this game is managed completely differently if he's available. I really do. I think they go to him in the sixth inning. And maybe they go to him even a batter or two earlier in the sixth inning. I am really intrigued to see this bullpen and the way Mendy deploys it at full strength. And I thought it was full strength tonight, but obviously Nunez wasn't available. Hopefully going into this weekend against Chicago, it will be. And we'll be able to see how he manages with a Reed Garrett who has figured things out, with Adam Ottavino, who's been a lot better, with Edwin Diaz as the closer, and certainly with Dednell Nunez. So here we are going into an off day. I don't like these off days. And the reason I don't like these off days is because when you're winning all the time, you want to see your team play baseball, but also the Mets have had a stupid amount of off days. Let me walk you through this. They take 2 off days going into London, play 2 games, get an off day going into the last homestand. Then they play the 6 games, the 3 with Texas now, so 9 in a row. Then they have another off day on Thursday, play 3 against Chicago, take another off day before the Subway Series, play 2 games, then take another off day. So over the course of the next 8 days, the Mets are going to play 5 games and have 3 off days. The hell is that? That's too much. And that's a part of why Christian Scott isn't here, because the Mets figured with all of these off days, we don't need a 6-man rotation. And also keeping an eye on how they've used Christian Scott in the minor leagues. He's been pitching, but they've been taking him out of games very early. Like his last start the other day, I think he pitched like 3 2/3 innings before they pulled him. But looking at the off day schedule, once they play these 3 off days or have these 3 off days over the next week plus, then they begin a stretch going into the All-Star break where they do not have an off day. 3 games at City against the Astros, 4 in Washington, 4 in Pittsburgh, 3 at home against Washington, 3 at home against Colorado, all without an off day. So that is 17 consecutive days with 17 games. So my assumption I am going to make is that they will reinsert Christian Scott at some point on that road trip the first week of July, because then they're going to be playing every single day, which I can't wait for. I'm excited about. I'll tell you something else I'm excited about, Pete. I had a nice conversation with my wife the other day. We are going to North Carolina on the 4th of July to visit family. Okay, seems all normal. So I said to my wife, look, I know that driving to North Carolina in one day is tough. It's a lot. Maybe it's too much for the kids. What'd you think about, maybe cutting it in half? She's like, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. I said, yeah, the perfect place to cut it in half is Washington, D.C. It's the halfway point. And she's like, you're right. And I said, oh, by the way, one last thing. The week of July 1st, as we're going up there or down there, the Mets are in Washington. And she said, oh, I see what's going on here. So you want to stop in D.C., see the Mets take on the Nationals, and then keep the road trip going? I said, yeah, only if you thought it made sense. And she's like, I got to tell you, it makes sense.
Good for you, dude. I don't know how you pull that stuff off, man. I mean, my wife would be like, first of all, we're flying to North Carolina, and hell no, we're not going to see a baseball game when we're on vacation. Not happening.
Well, it's like a respite. It's a respite vacation. So I think I'm going to go to the Tuesday game in Washington when they take on the Nationals, which crazily enough could be a big game. I mean, the Nationals are really in the mix.
Now, have your kids gone to DC before, the ballpark?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
It was, I'm trying to remember, it was right after the Nationals traded Juan Soto because I went to a Mets Nationals game in Washington. You know what? I know exactly now. It was right after the trade deadline in 2022. We were obviously having a great year because, and you guys could look this up if anybody cares, Michael Givens, I think, was making his Met debut that day.
Yes.
And the Mets had this massive lead going into the ninth inning. And Michael Givens was slowly making it like interesting. And they won the game. It was an afternoon game. They won the game, but it was a little dicey. And I also recall that because the Nationals had just traded Soto to San Diego, they were discounting everything. And so we sat in like these really cool tickets that were cheap. And there was free water and free soda and free drinks. And I remember it being awesome. And for the kids, what I could tell you, and I know Jet loved this. This time I'm going to bring Spence and Jet, both my sons. They have a playground in the outfield. Like a legitimate climb around, do crazy crap playground in center field. They have that at Nationals Park.
That's pretty cool. I've started to notice that's a trend. Like I went to Arizona last year, and the Diamondbacks, and I saw they had like a playground area for kids. I believe Yankee Stadium has something like that too.
Do they?
I've never seen it, but there's somebody at our job that has said he brings his kids there all the time, but he tells me keep it hush hush. So maybe I just ruined something.
No. The playground I'm aware of at Yankee Stadium is in the parking lot. If you walk from the Jacob Rupert, and this is not a secret, if it is, I mean, what do you want me to tell you? It's a Met podcast. So how many people are going to take advantage of it? But if you walk from the Jacob Rupert parking garage to Yankee Stadium, there's a playground, and it's great, but it's outside of Yankee Stadium. I don't know if there is one inside of Yankee Stadium, but I'll tell you, man, I know that we go to watch the games, but when you take your kids, I know this with my kids, they'll watch most of the game, but there's always that one point in the game where I got to distract them with something, whether it's kiddie field, whether it's walking around real quick. And so having something like that in a ballpark it's actually a really smart thing. I have nothing against it. I think it's actually almost necessary at times.
No, it's great. And actually, I'm very proud. The last game I went to with my son, he hit his first home run over that field, so that park. So I feel good about that.
He's
getting there with the wiffle ball.
Before we get to your voicemails, let's hear from Negative Dan. Negative Dan is a regular on this show. I am curious what Negative Dan is going to write because the Mets have played very, very well. But we'll see. Here we go. I'm reading this for the first time. Deja vu. What you gonna do? Here we go again, almost 2 months to the day. Playing their best ball of the season, long win streak, that dreaded pressure back with basically everyone having playoff aspirations for them now. And a loss in the last game of the series to end the run and possibly break the magic. Basically the exact scenario we were in after the Dodgers series back in late April, minus the superpowers of Francisco Alvarez and, more importantly, Grimace. I wrote you back then saying how I was worried about them letting things spiral after their momentum had subsided like they have in the past. Not only did they spiral, but they wound up playing some of the worst baseball in the league to the point where we were blinked and they were 10 games under 500. They've built up a lot of goodwill again after this, just like they had back in LA. But this next month is easily the most crucial of the season. They have a chance to change the narrative around them and not let this turn into spiral part 2. for once making a stand and showing that they are going to consistently be in the mix for the rest of the year going forward. This is where your core can really cement themselves and show they deserve to stay intact and not just be a group that could have a couple of really good stretches that come months apart. They cannot let this happen a second time 3 months into the year. And if they do, this has to be a damning indictment on them to the front office. You know where I stand on how this ends up? Crying emoji, down emoji, leg emoji. Oh, pee down leg. That's what he meant with the emojis. That's pretty funny. And the next two series against the Yankees, one next week and one before the deadline, are looking more and more like it's going to serve as the bookends to the final verdict about this group. As the great Clint Capella once said, what you going to do about it? By the way, I like Negative Dan's email. I think he's not wrong with a lot of what he said. I know it may come across negative, but it's factual. I mean, I remember, you can go back if you listen to old podcasts, not that you would, to the excitement that I had and we all had. We did a Rico right after they won the Friday game against the Dodgers. Same game Alvarez got hurt in. And we were all so excited, rightfully so. They were playing great baseball. They were above 500. They went to LA. They won the first two games. Like, that was the pinnacle of the season prior to now. They lost the finale. Tyler Glasnow killed them. And then things started to spiral. And so I agree with Dan. And that's why what I said about this series coming up against Chicago, it's very important. I mean, we're going to find out if this is just a nice stretch, because every team has a nice stretch, or if this really brought them back into it. By the way, me and Dan are simpatico. His PS was pinch hitting Jeff McNeil and DJ Stewart back-to-back in the seventh inning of a tie game is, quote, how to end a win streak 101. I'm totally with him on that. I hated the moves, as we talked about earlier. So I agree that now it's go time. You use this winning streak and this stretch to get back into it, to erase the deficit, if you will, because now you're in it. You're a game out of a wild card spot. You are right there. You are going to get to play all of these teams that are surrounding you. Let's find out how good you are. Let's also listen to a couple of voicemails. I like to do that on the series-ending podcast. So, Pete, fire up voicemail number one.
Yeah. So, why is Jeff McNeil playing every single game now? Like, shouldn't Jose Iglesias? I mean, we've seen enough of McNeil, right? He's batting like, 220, 3 home runs, useless. He's good in the field, I know, but, like, how much more can we take of this guy? I mean, Iglesias getting a hit basically every game. He's a great player, and it's just what we need right now. I want to see McNeil gone. And also, Torrens, is he a better hitter than Francisco Alvarez? I know Alvarez just got back, but like he's not looking too great at the plate right now, and Torrens is an absolute beast right now. So hopefully this gets answered, and yeah.
All right, a couple of things. First of all, I don't know when he left that voicemail, but Francisco Alvarez in the first 2 games of the Texas series answered the call. All right, he has been a very streaky player since he's been called up. He still has a lot to prove, but offensively, he started to wake up in this series against Texas. I think he had 7 hits in the 3-game series, number one. Number two, the guy's defense is amazing. I mean, the team ERA, and I know sometimes you don't want to look too closely into that, but you hear the praise coming his way from a guy like Sean Manaea, a veteran, and you see the different results when Alvarez is catching him versus everybody else. Francisco Alvarez needs to catch as much as physically possible. I get it can't be every day because he's a catcher and there's a wear and tear element. I'm thrilled that he caught all 3 games of this series against the Texas Rangers. I'd be curious to see if he could pull off doing all 3 against Chicago because it's day game, night game, off day. So, honestly, I think Francisco Alvarez should catch all 3 in Chicago in the 2 games against the Yankees. And then reasonably 2 out of 3 against the Astros. I want him out there as often as possible. His bat will be there. We've seen that in this series against Texas. But more than that, it's what he does behind the plate.
Well, to that point, I know that you were critical of Shohei Ohtani, but let's remember, up until that 6th inning, he was pitching a no-hitter. He was pitching a no-hitter, and the first inning, yes, he walked guy, but he was also getting pinched a lot. He was, and that's part of Alvarez's genius, is that he really can, call a good game, knows where to put his glove, knows how to frame pitches, and the ump just sucked today in the first inning to really screw over Minai. Let's be serious. It was not a clean first inning.
I think Jimenez had, pound for pound, one of the worst games I've seen from a home plate umpire this year. I mean, it was atrocious. I mean, there were a lot of missed calls that went both ways. As far as Jeff McNeil is concerned, so Jeff McNeil took a week off, or the Mets benched him for a week going into London. And a part of that was to give him a fresh head, but the other part was they were facing lefties every single day. I don't understand why Jeff McNeil became a platoon player. And I'm not saying that as a defense for him. I'm saying that in that he's not a guy who struggles against lefties. It's not as if, I got a great idea to fix Jeff McNeil. Let's have him never face lefties and just have him face righties. His numbers against lefties this year have actually been better than his numbers against righties. And if you look at his career numbers, they're dead even. There is no platoon advantage or disadvantage with Jeff McNeil. So this is not me arguing he needs to play more. It's me saying, why is his playing time being determined by the handedness of the guy they're facing? With that said, he doesn't play for a week. A part of that is they faced a lot of lefties. He plays against the Phillies in London, goes 2 for 4. Gets 2 hits in his last 2 at-bats, too. Both against lefties, by the way, if you're keeping track. I think it was off the top of my head, Matt Strahm and Jose Alvarado. So you look at that game, I certainly did, and said, okay, he's building off of this. This is great. Since that point, when he went 2 for 4 against Philadelphia and 2 for his last 2, he has 3 hits, 1 extra base hit, and he's had, let me see how many at-bats, 14, 18, 20, 26 at-bats. So he is 3 for 26 with 1 extra base hit and 1 RBI since his quote-unquote benching. He is still not good. So despite the Mets winning and things being better, it has not been fixed with Jeff McNeil. Keep an eye on Luis Santa Acuna, though, because even though his overall numbers at AAA are still not great, he's been like a house of fire for a month. I would love to know when they would feel comfortable saying, you know what, you've played well enough, come up here. Now, my idea, which I have mentioned, is Brett Beatty should come up here and play second base. The problem is they love DJ Stewart, and DJ Stewart is the logical guy to go down because he's the guy with options. Let's take a listen to another voicemail.
What's up, Ed? What's up, Pete? Currently watching the Mets here, 1-0, top of the second. And it just got me thinking, JD Martinez, on this hot streak that he's been on, is going to be a really hot piece at the trade deadline. But, you said it on the Rico yourself, JD's been such a integral piece of why this Mets team has been putting up runs and putting up offense the last 5 games in the Grimace era. But when it comes trade deadline time, do we get rid of him or do we keep him? If he's such a big integral part of our team, we have him on this 1-year deal. Do we trade him for the prospects in return, for the draft capital, or for these young players, or do we use him as a really good piece, almost like a Cespedes type, to propel us in the playoffs? I'd love to know what you guys think, because honestly, in my opinion, I'm leaning towards the side of I don't think we can get rid of him. Yes, he's going to bring back a great haul, but I think without him, this team might not make the playoffs if currently Pete's getting a little hot. If everybody else is not hot, this dude's a pure hitter. You kind of said it with Max Scherzer last year, like, this is why we got him. Like, we got him to hit the ball, and if he's the only guy really producing on a consistent level, do you get rid of him at the trade deadline, or do you just ride him out for one more for this 1 year that you have him on the contract? We'd love to know what you guys think. Thanks.
This is a part of why I hate, and I've said this before on the Rico a lot, I hate discussions about what to do at the trade deadline when you're far away from the trade deadline. because so much can change. I resisted for a while talking about, should they sell this guy at the deadline? Should they sell that guy at the deadline? And my answer was always, we have so much time before the trade deadline. Why are we worrying about this right now? Like, let's see where the team is. Obviously, over the last few weeks, the Mets have played so well, they're in a different place. So all that discussion that I would kind of punt away and say, this is stupid, I don't want to talk about this. Like, why are we talking about something that's 2 months from now? It's like, that would be almost the equivalent of breaking down free agency next year. Like, yeah, there's a time and place for it, but in the middle of a season in which you're playing every day and the season is not over, why would we do that? So I don't mean to punt that question away, but here's why it's impossible to answer. Where are they on July 25th? That is a month from now. Are they, as Negative Dan mentioned, going backwards and they pee down their leg and they're 7 games under 500? Because if that's the case, what do we of course they're trading JD Martinez. I don't think there's any doubt. But what if they're legitimately a good team? What if they are tied for a wild card spot in late July? Are you really trading JD Martinez? Probably not. So a lot of this has to do with where you are. The other thing it has a lot to do with is right now we're talking with blank names. We're saying 4 prospects. Well, what are the prospects? Are they top line prospects? Are you getting a top 100 prospect for JD Martinez? Because that may make David Stern say, geez, yeah, we're only 2.5 games out, but my God, we have a chance to get this piece that I'm stunned we could get. Or is it the opposite? And the prospect you're talking about is the 12th rated prospect in the Reds organization. Do you know what I mean? So I know we love to ask these questions, but they involve things that we have no idea about right now. Where is the team? How are they performing? And then what are the trade offers? Like, I don't feel like you have to be in a need to trade someone for the sake of trading them. I've always said that about Pete whenever the discussion's been about trading Alonso. A part of why I never thought it would happen is not necessarily just because I think the Mets will be in it, but because I don't think the return is going to be good enough. And you're going to end up saying, really? That's what I'm trading my franchise guy for? I may as well just hold on to him. And if I lose him, I know it's not the greatest draft pick in the world, but at least I get a draft pick back. I promise you this. When we are sitting here doing special trade deadline editions of the Rico in mid to late July, probably right around the All-Star break, that's probably going to be the time, we'll know. Or we'll have a much better idea then than we do now. And the other thing about the trade deadline, good and bad, how many teams are going to be in it? If every National League team this side of Miami and Colorado is within 2 or 3 games, they may not be any sellers. But we will have those discussions. But still, in the middle of June 20th, the first day of summer, it is still premature. I can promise you that. Let me read you a couple of emails. You could always email us, thericob@gmail.com. Jimmy writes, not only does pinch hitting back-to-back with McNeil and Stewart, they both swing at the first pitch. Am I missing something? McNeil is batting .220, DJ .180. Mendoza has to stop with this. Let the starters play and pinch hit when needed. Completely agree. But all in all, a great streak and a good series. One minor adjustment I'd make to the lineup is splitting up Vientos and Alvarez. They've come up in a few situations where we've needed contact and they've struck out back-to-back. I'd insert Bader or whoever's playing second base between them, someone who can handle situational hitting a little bit better for now. That's from Jimmy. Obviously, I agree with you about the pinch hitting. That was there were a few criticisms, I guess, I had from this third game, but that was the big one. Why are you emptying the bench with a .220 hitting Jeff McNeil and taking out Harrison Bader, who's been their best clutch hitter, for a guy who's hitting basically 100 over the last month? Either way, how are we going to remember this finale against Texas? Are we going to remember it the way we remember the finale against the Dodgers, as we didn't think it was a big deal at the time, and then things skyrocketed in a terrible way? Or the Mets going to prove that this winning streak they've been on, the Grimace era Mets, are not just going to go down meekly? We're going to find out with 3 huge games in Chicago against the Cubs. We appreciate you downloading Rico Brogna, subscribing to Rico Brogna, or checking out Rico Brogna on YouTube. Much appreciated. We'll be back at you before you know it. Thank you for listening to Rico Brogna.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Rico Brogna podcast. It's amazing, isn't it? Make sure you download it now to keep it on you at all times. We hope you